obviously building up now to Norwich. I wonder though what the mood or how you felt this week. Has it been a sense of slight frustration, or just we can put everything that happened last week behind us and just get on with things?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing we can do about the goal in terms of the last week's game. It is what it is, and it was good to get back in on Tuesday with a full squad, because obviously last week it was slightly disrupted because of the internationals. So it was good to get the full group back in this week. Slightly inclement weather, but we're used to that by now. But we're good to train everyone all week, and in the preparation for tomorrow.
Was there a sense amongst the squad though that they really felt, bearing in mind the sort of performance that certainly in the early stage of the game last week, was there a sense of we've been a bit hard done by here?
There's always a sense of that when you feel there's some sort of injustice happens, but you've got to get that out of your head quickly, and it's something that happens to every team all over the land at some point in their careers. And it was come the end of the game, then we reflect on it on the Tuesday, and there was a lot of good things to take from the game. Had we gone in at half time 1-0 up, slightly different team talk from them and slightly different approach. But we had, looking at the performance, which is what I look at obviously every week, results count obviously, but looking at the performance, I was very, very happy with the performance of a lot of my players over at a team that are going to be challenging for the Premier League title.
Just talking to a couple of the players post that match, there was a sense that they felt that it was to a certain extent men against boys going into that. I mean, does it, from a manager's perspective, does it sometimes feel like that? Has it got to be a case of a pragmatic approach to teams at the level of Chelsea that might be slightly different perhaps to teams like Norwich?
It's never ever feel as if I've got in man against boys, to be honest with you, in any game we've approached, and I think this season we've shown that that's not the case, but we're obviously aware that media wise round about the approach to a game against the top six, the media approach is slightly different than it is to a team that isn't in the top six. But as far as the game is concerned and the team and the approach we take to it, we look at it on an individual basis, the team we're playing, but we always go out to make sure that we try and go and win the game.
Absolutely. Just bearing in mind then the game against Norwich, travelling to Carrow Road, bearing in mind your respective positions at this stage in the table, and I know it's really early days, so you can get too uptight about it, but does it add an extra caution, or because of what happened last week, do you feel extra drive to get out there and attack from the start?
No, not at all. It's and that's part of my job to analyse every team with a kind of individual approach and be cold and slightly detached from any emotion of what we felt happened or didn't happen. We've got now another team, a different game. We fit Norwich into our system, so to speak, in terms of the approach in the week leading up to the game. And I've got to take a cold clinical look at that in terms of how we're going to go and beat Norwich. No, absolutely not. There's no any emotional attachment to what we might have to do now.
Just finally for me, just moving slightly away from the football at the weekend, obviously Ian Holloway's departure from Crystal Palace early season again, but he's already saying how exhausted he is, how exhausted he's found, I suppose, the tail end of last season and the beginning of this season. I know you weren't in the same position as Crystal Palace last season, but as a newcomer in the Premier League as a manager, are you finding it is exhausting? Is it taking its toll at all?
No, that's not something I feel at all. I really enjoy my job. I'm proud to be the manager of the football club. Delighted that we managed to be promoted, and there's been a lot of hard work. That's without doubt. There's a lot of hard work, and I've got good people here around me that have done a lot of work in the last few months leading up to the rigours of the Premier League. But I'm really enjoying my job, to be honest with you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Malky, what have you made of Jose Mourinho's accusation of Cardiff as being a team of time wasters?
Is that what he said?
I think so. He accused your players of trying to waste time during the last game.
I think it's if that's the case, it doesn't really bother me in the slightest. I'm pretty sure it was born out of the frustration of being sent off. I think that when you look at 4 minutes being held up, nowadays that's a pretty normal standard amount of time in a second half. you speak to the fourth officials and they tell you that it's 30 seconds per sub, 30 seconds per goal. Well, there was 3 goals in the second half and there was 5 subs. That leaves about 30 seconds of time added on, of which William was lying down for about 15 of them. And Ivanovic got a row for going to get the ball slowly. So I'm not really too sure where the added time is on our part. As I say, everyone's the same in terms of that. When you're frustrated, it's something else that you might blame. I remember watching Porto play Celtic in the UEFA Cup final a long time ago, where that allegation was labelled at him by Martin O'Neill at the end of the game. So I think it's just something that was probably born out of frustration at being sent off.
Considering the high profile of Mourinho, usually whatever he says tends to stick. Are you concerned perhaps that type of wasting time will play on the minds of referees or other managers or other opposition?
Not as long as you report what I've just said, and that clears that up, and hopefully that sticks.
In that respect, are you surprised that much of the attention has been given to that aspect rather than what happened with David Marshall on the first goal for Chelsea?
Well, maybe that was something that was designed that way in terms of questions that were asked of him and answers that were given. At the time, it was, as I said, it's despite the amount of copy that it's received, it's quite clear what the rules were. It's quite clear the rules weren't adhered to, and we were unfortunate. That's that. It's finished. There's nothing I can do about it. As long as it's in black and white, cleared up. It really doesn't matter what people's opinions are of what David should or shouldn't have done. It was clear that Samuel Eto'o broke the rules, and unfortunately, the wrong decision was given. But that. It's done, and I've finished talking about that.
I know it's early in the season, but how important is it for you to try and stay out that bottom 3?
It's important that in May that we're not in the bottom 3. That's where my focus is on. You want to be as high up the table as possible every week. That's without question. But I've got to take a calm, pragmatic look at it in terms of the performances of the team over the piece of the season. There's weeks and there's months where you're going to be going through games where you play the top 6, and there's other months where it's not the top 6 you're playing. And there's obviously times where you're hoping that the strength of the team playing against you isn't quite a Champions League team, and that might give you the chance, a better chance of picking up points.
One of the Norwich players this week has come out and urged the manager to play a more attacking formation, playing 2 up front rather than 3 in midfield.
Is he one of the forwards?
He's a midfielder. Is that something you're expecting or something you're prepared for on Saturday?
I'm prepared for a variety of shapes. We've done an analysis work on Norwich, and we've seen them play at various times. So we're aware that they could play either system. So it's something that we can adapt to in both ways.
In terms of the teams around you in the table, Sunderland have appointed a new manager, now Crystal Palace looking for a new manager. Mm-hmm. Does that give you a boost in any respect in terms of your ambition to stay in the league?
Because other managers are sacked?
Because there's turmoil at those clubs and they're making changes, so it's always difficult to adapt to a new manager.
No, not particularly. It's not something I've concentrated on too much. To be fair, we concentrate on ourselves. You start looking at other people, then that's the day that you start having problems at your own club.
Malky, are you surprised looking at Norwich that they are in the bottom 3 this season? Does their position surprise you?
I think at the moment it's still quite early on in the league, and you see yourself that a win or two, back-to-back wins, and Fulham were there a couple of weeks ago, back-to-back wins, they're out. Someone gets another 3 points, they're out again. It's quite close, I think, between 10 teams. So at the moment, it's anybody can be in that area.
You played there obviously for many years. Will it be a special occasion for you going back there tomorrow?
It'll be lovely going back. I've been back as a player and I've been back as a manager before, but it's a club that's always got a fondness in terms of my heart. My little boy Callum was born there, and I had good years there as a player, and we had success there. And it's the good people up there, and it's a good stadium. It's a stadium there's a terrific atmosphere, and they can really help the home team at certain points. And it'll be good going back to see some of the staff that I'm friendly with. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But obviously we've got a game to win.
Looking at the position of yourselves and Norwich in the table, does that give this game any extra significance? The fact that you could possibly drop into the bottom three. I doubt it would have much of a psychological effect on yourself as a manager, but are you concerned that if players drop into the bottom three for the first time in their career, it could change things?
No, because some of them are playing in the Premier League for the first time in their career. I don't think it matters as far as that's concerned. As I said, it's one of these things that at the moment I look at my performances. I obviously look at results. That's a given, but I take a balanced view on performances as to how we're playing over a period of time, and it's about where we finish in May that counts. It's a tough league. It's an uncompromising league, and there's periods where it's going to be tough, really tough, and you dig in. But it's my job. It's my players' job, and that's why myself and the coaches are here to manage that situation.
Okay. At the risk of labouring the point about Chelsea, there's one thing that does still need clearing up. You approach quite rightly, I know, to get a ruling or some kind of understanding of the interpretation. Have you had a reply from Mike Wright?
I'm awaiting that, and I believe I'm getting it this afternoon. I spoke to Mike. I went in and had a chat with Anthony, and Mike was in the room as well, right after the game, purely to ask them their thoughts on it, because at that point I hadn't seen the TV replay, and they cleared it up for me by saying that they felt the goalkeeper dropped the ball, and also cleared it up by saying that they didn't think he bounced it, because if he'd bounced it, it would have been a foul for us. So that was fine. I then went to see it, and obviously looked at the pictures you guys showed me, and showed that it was a mistake. I then spoke to Mike about an hour later in the car, driving home, and he by that point had seen it and realised that there was obviously an error in their part. But I said I'll go through the proper channels, and I'll email you, and you can email me back with an official response. So I'm awaiting that this afternoon. But again, I'm not here to have a witch hunt on referees. They do a good job, and they've got a tough job, especially nowadays where there is so much instant footage that can be people can reflect on right away. So it's one of these things that's happened. There's nothing I can do about it. It did affect the game, but we get up and go on with it again.
Are you surprised that somebody like David Marshall, hardly the most controversial of footballers, would be singled out by Jose Mourinho and he made remarks about he wouldn't want his 12-year-old son to end up doing the kind of things that David Marshall did? I mean, were you surprised, given the fact that Marshall was not at fault, in your view? Why was he singled out?
I think it was purely out of his frustration. I think, as I said, you saw that he didn't do the after-match press, and it was obviously in his pre-Champions League press that he then brought it up. So I think that was all born out of frustration that the referee sent him off for probably what he thought was something he shouldn't have been sent off for. So I would imagine that's all. I don't think there's ever been any history between Jose Mourinho and David Marshall.